certainly do not rule anything out just yet in the Formula PlayStation League. As JT warms up the tyres. Cars here in the past have reached a maximum speed of 332 kilometers per hour, which is 206 kilometers per hour in old money. And all the while during this lap, JT and Canute and Carwin Robb, those top three, will all be just eyeing that 564 meter run from pole position down to turn 1. This lap as well completed at 72% throttle. So it's a bit of a joyride out there, but a lot of those are difficult corners and very, very tough to get right. So it will be a tough race, that's for sure. As JT just rounds the final corner, having done a pretty good job of backing everybody up. So everybody's going to arrive to the grid at pretty similar times here, of course. As he round the final corner of the game, takes over the cars and just puts everybody into their grid slots so that we can get underway. And we are almost ready to go here in Spain. Well, that 26-point lead at the very top of the championship might just be about to come down. Canute starting second, Vapor Trench the leader, starting all the way down in 13th. That was the shock of qualifying. Are we about to see a shock of a race? Are we about to see a shock of an end to this World Championship? Well, we're about to find out, because the commencement of those final 3 races starts now. The Spanish Grand Prix is underway, and how's the start from second from Canute? Well, it's a very good one, but JT covers him off. Carwin Robb's getting swallowed up by Kazu and Sam. Meanwhile, Shea right behind them is closing up, and Shea dives down the inside. Carwin Robb has to take avoiding action. Sam's in the middle. Oh, and Shea spins! Shea spins round in the racing points. Something had to go wrong for someone at the start of this Grand Prix. It was about 4 cars in one, and James as well. James has spun as well, and at the back, it's absolute drama. Absolutely mental stuff at the start of this Spanish Grand Prix. Crazy stuff going on. James has spun, and unbelievably, he's taken Brown with him after Shea, his teammate, also spun off the start. A dramatic start to the Spanish Grand Prix for both Racing Point drivers. Shea tried to go side by side with about 4 different cars into turn 1. It didn't work out for him. And later on, just 2 corners later, James spins as well, and both Racing Points well outside of the points. A dramatic and horrible start for them. It all means that Sam is up to 3rd off the start, Cassio up to 4th. Decinio has made his way up to 7th place after all that drama, right behind Carwin Robb, who's made a horrible start, down to 6th. Cobalt's ahead of him in 5th. What a start to the Spanish Grand Prix. Behind them, Lord Alam is in front of Vapor King. He's also in front of his teammate Vapor Trench. And up towards turn 1 they go, and Trench is in there as well. Has to be careful, Vapor Trench, not to lose his front wing at the back of the Haas. But Lord Alam, crucially for him, is through. And Vapor King's losing grip. He's on the hard tyres. It's not very grippy at all. And Trench is down the inside. 4. King, to his credit, continues to battle it. TDB is going side by side up there with the senior, I believe it is. And down the inside goes King. And Elliott's right behind these two as well. Elliott's got a great exit out of turn 5, but he's quite close enough to have a look. TDB still battling with the senior, but the Mercedes manages to stay ahead for the time being. It's now left TDB right in the clutches of Lord Alam behind him. You can barely keep up with this start here. It's absolutely mental here in Spain. And behind them, Jack Prentice defending now from Vapor Shea, who looks to recover from his start, as does his teammate James. 14th and 18th for the 2 Racing Point drivers. So a horrific opening to the Grand Prix for both of them. JT, meanwhile, is streaking out in front. Has over a 1 second gap already to Vapor Canute. And meanwhile, Vapor Trench is now past King, so he's got him on the run in towards turn 1. So that's the McLaren in front of him. And Lord Alam, who had just made the pass, has got into the wall. So he had passed Vapor King, but now he's beached his McLaren in the barrier, manages to just about get it out again. But already drama for 4 different drivers. Brown and James have both come into the pits. And there they are. So, it's been a nightmare start for them, hasn't it? Horrible get-go to the race. And JT has a penalty. So having made such a good start, he now finds himself with a penalty here in the Spanish Grand Prix. And that plays it in the hands of Vapor Canute. But of course, do not expect that to be the last penalty we see here in Spain, because it very likely will not be, as Canute follows him through the final sector and up towards the final corner, and he is now back behind, or over a second behind him. But worth noting once again, that penalty for JT. Here comes TDB looking to pass Desinio on the run down towards turn 1. The runner's got a really good run, Slipstream as well, DRS. But the problem is, there's a bit of a DRS train going on ahead of him, so he can't go for the move just yet on the Mercedes. And that'll be so frustrating for TDB. And it's a McLaren off, Red Bull off, I should say, and it's Casu. Casu spins off in the Red Bull. Yet another spinner in the Spanish Grand Prix. Manages, though, to keep all the bits on the car, so manages to keep going all in one piece, but he will have wrecked those tyres down in P15. Now, it was such a good qualifying as well for Casu, but unable to make anything of it. TDB still right behind Desinio, putting the McLaren driver under all sorts of pressure on lap number 4. As Desinio looks to just keep the car pointing in the right direction out of turn 9. TDB isn't quite close enough to have a go just yet. Meanwhile, Vapor Trench has made his way back up into the points in P8, so it's been a good start for him. And Vapor Canute is, still only in 2nd place, so for him, it'll be a little bit frustrating, because the further down Canute finishes, of course, the more that plays into the hands of Vapor Trench, and the more pressure it takes off Trench's shoulders to get a good finish. But still, 8th place for him, whilst Canute is 2nd. Still will not work all that well for him. Here comes Carwin Robb, looking to get the pass on Cobalt, and he does get the position back on the Williams driver. So Carwin Robb, having made a pretty poor start, is now back up into P4 and looks to close the 3-second gap up to the podium places. Meanwhile, TDB and Desinio once again getting very close, once again sharing the same bit of tarmac. Very wide goes Cobalt, and Desinio and TDB both get past him. The Williams driver struggling for grip, even though he's on the soft tyres, and he's now right in the clutch of the Vapor Trench. One little mistake through turn 4 has cost him 2 positions right after he's already lost one to the house of Carwin Robb, and it's now down to P7 for Cobalt. It might be about to get worse as well, because here comes Trench, but not quite close enough for the move yet. And Button's back has once again left the session, so connection issues running right for him in this Grand Prix so far, unfortunately. Vapor King still right behind Trench, because Trench is caught now in this traffic. Elian, the promoted Ferrari driver, is still pressuring him, but I tell you what, Elian himself is down in 21st in the championship and looks pretty certain to go back down to Division 2, where he just came from, having been there in Season 5. Vapor King looking to close up to Vapor Trench. Elian also lurking behind the Haas driver, trying to gain that position on him. Vapor Shea has made his way back up to 11th place meanwhile. And Elian side by side with King. That's very tight indeed. Can he pull it off through turn 3? The inside for 4. King will try and defend it. He's got the drive, but is he going to have to stall it through 4? Still going to be wheel to wheel. King on the inside, Elian on the outside. It's brilliant racing between those two. They're just about leaving each other enough space. Through turn 6 they go. Elian tries to go round the outside 7. He's got the inside through 8. It's brilliant if he pulls it off. No, he can't. King managed to stay in front. That's exceptional stuff between those two. They managed to keep it side by side without making any contact. But in the end, Elian just had to yield and will have to try again on Vapor King to gain that position. That was a clinic in how to go side by side, though, between those two drivers. Hats off to both of them. And meanwhile, TDB has gotten past Desinio, And now he's past Carwin Rob because the Haas driver is into the pits. And now look at Desinho with DRS. He's closing back up to the Renault. He's got the slipstream. Can he get back past him into turn 1? He's going to have a go into turn 1. Oh, he's pulled it off. Brilliant move from Desinho to get past TDB. And he regains the position. Back into P4 for him. TDB back down to 5th, but he's trying to come back at him in towards turn 4. This is exceptional racing up and down the field here in Catalonia. I'm losing my voice. This is incredible stuff. Elliot right behind King. P7 and P8 for those two. Elliot will be looking to come back at the Haas driver. And in front of them, someone's kicked up a little bit of dirt. Vapor Trench is, I think it was TDB. Vapor Trench is still harrying Desinho in front. Excuse me, TDB is still harrying Desinho in front. Vapor Trench right on the tail of TDB. And these two battling in front of him will be wearing their tyres and just giving Trench those little glimpses as this race goes on. 1.3 seconds gap out front between JT and Canute. Sam still holding P3. Wide goes Desinho. That's a chance surely for TDB. Yes, it is. So TDB, well, it's the drag race down towards turn 1. TDB should have it done, and he does. Gets past the Mercedes, and that one mistake from Desinho cost him that position again. And TDB is once again up to 3rd place. He's up to 3rd now because Sam has just come into the pits for Alfa Romeo. And there he is into pit exit on the medium compound of tyres. So that's going to be one more stop for him because mediums won't make it between now and the end of the Grand Prix. It's going to be a huge ask for a track here in Spain. And Cobalt has just gotten past Buttons back. So there they are. Buttons back has disconnected, of course, isn't he? So that's why he's being passed by just about everybody at the moment. As Canute looks to bring that gap down. There a second, he has done now. But will it stay that way as they pass the detection zone? Slightly running it ragged. 12 in towards 13, but he's pretty close here, you know. His final chicane, which he has done, he's pretty close, but JT pits. So the race leader into the pits for Red Bull. It's slowed down for the limiter, locks up in the process. And now JT, with a penalty as well, of course, stops the Red Bull. And they get to work on the car. Hard tyres on. So you just wonder, is that JT making an attempt to go to the end of the race from here? We shall see. Desinho's on the hards as well. So if JT's going for that, Desinho will try it as well. And we'll see if they still have any luck. It could just be, of course, that they're trying to increase the longevity of this particular stint so that they can stop under the soft tyres later on in the Grand Prix. That is also very plausible. We'll see how it pans out for those two strategy-wise between now and the end of the Grand Prix. TDB is still just in front of Trench. Meanwhile, behind them, the battle still raging between Elian and Vapor King as Brown picks up a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. We now have 4 drivers on penalties. JT, Cobalt, Desinho and Brown. Lord Alam, after his spin earlier on, is the last of the current runners. As Trench closed up to CDB, but still not close enough, as King once again stays ahead of Elian for the time being. Desinho, having just come into the pits, is within a second of Cobalt. Through turn 9 they go. He's not going to be close enough just yet to go for the overtake through turn 10, but if Cobalt doesn't pit, Desinho will surely be able to pick him off on the run down towards turn 1 as we start the next lap. Casu's got past Buttons back because of as here comes Trench because of the connection issues for Buttons back, as Trench goes down the inside and gets the lead from TDB. This is pretty big because TDB now is in huge danger of being pushed outside of the championship conversation. But JT here picks up another penalty. He's just got past Bazooka Joe in the Alfa Romeo. But JT, our provisional race leader, now has 6 seconds worth of penalties, which is going to be so costly for him come the end of the Grand Prix. Vapor Canute has also pitted. He's behind him on track. But crucially, Vapor Canute does not have any penalties to his name as of yet. But there are still 24 laps left to go in the Spanish Grand Prix as JT runs pretty wide and kicks up a load of dust in front of these two as Canute continues to close up to Bazooka Joe. Down towards turn 10 as he now follows the Alfa Romeo through turn 12 in towards 13. The dirty air here through this final sector will be costing him a little bit of time, so he's either hoping he can nail this final chicane, get the move done into turn 1, or that Bazooka Joe comes into the pits. Bazooka Joe stays out, but Canute here, this should be pretty easy pickings on Bazooka Joe down towards turn 1. He's got DRS, he's got a superior exit, superior grip, and he gets the move done before they reach the braking zone of turn 1, so he can just slot back onto the racing line and get ahead of the Alfa Romeo, and is now once again just over a second behind our race leader JT. Elian has fallen just about a second behind Vapor King, so he's lost a bit of time somewhere. Desenio just behind Cobalt in their battle for 11th place. So Desenio now running outside the points after his pit stop. Cobalt pitted onto his set of mediums 3 laps to go. So I think is it a 2-stop for Desenio? You would think that because he's gone onto the hard tyres, surely that would indicate that he is trying to go to the end, but surely from there that would be ludicrous, because this track is a circuit that eats up tyres, and it's going to be quite tricky, I would have thought, to make them last. But I'll say it many times, I am just the commentator, so there's a lot I don't know, and Desenio and JT surely here have something up their sleeves. And as well, you have to consider they are both on penalties. Vapor Canute says the fastest lap meanwhile with a 1:18.4 from the Ferrari driver. But despite that, he has fallen a second and a half behind JT in the last lap or so. So not quite as close to the Red Bull as he was just before the pit stops for these two. Canute is another one who's gone onto the hard tyres, so everybody opting for some sort of strategy gain. As TRT James also pits for racing points, so away he goes, and it's on to the hards for him. And I think from his position he might as well just see if he can make those tyres reach the distance, because he is outside of the points at the moment is James. 2 non-finishes and just a 1 points finish for James so far this season, and incidentally that 1 points finish was the victory that he took in Singapore in his first race of the year, the first race of season 6 I should say, and he hasn't scored points since then, so winning almost seems to be a bit of a curse for some drivers. Vapor Church hasn't won yet, and he's top of the championship, but he is currently P1, just in front of TDB as these two look to stretch their sets of medium tyres as long as they possibly can. Vapor King behind them is on the hards. He's just slightly beginning to drop Elian behind him. He's lost DRS now to the house in front, so after the fantastic battles that were going on between those two, Elian now has either taken a breather or he's just his tyres have given up the ghost after that battle and being in the dirty of the house. We shall see. Brown with another penalty meanwhile for AlphaTauri. So down in P15, that will not be doing his plights any good. And meanwhile, he's been going side by side with Lord Alam, and yeah, Lord Alam's got past him into turn 1. So Alam into P15. Brown with his penalties now down to 16th place. So both of these two have pitted at similar times. Brown has 10-lap-old medium tyres on the car. Lord Alam with 8-lap-old yellow-walled mediums on his McLaren. So a change of position there, but well outside the points for those two at the moment. And it's very well spread out between these three. Vapor King still P3 behind TDB as JT sets the fastest lap. And has also just cleared Jack Prentice in the AlphaTauri. Vapor Canute will be the next one to try and negotiate him. But he's a way back, isn't he, from the AlphaTauri driver. And he's losing time now, hand over fist to JT. In front of him, really needs to clear Jack as quick as he possibly can. Remember, Canute desperately needs to to gain some solid points out of this race. Otherwise, it's very much advantage Trench. Just a reminder again that Trench cannot seal the championship here in Spain. But provided he gets a strong result here, and provided that he gets a bit of a favour out of Canute as well, then he might be able to set himself up for success next time at the Austrian Grand Prix for round number 9. As Sam gets a penalty as well for Alfa Romeo. And where's Sam? He is in P8 at the moment. There he is. So still inside the points. He was running nicely in the podium positions earlier on in the Grand Prix as Vapor Trench comes into the pits. So the McLaren driver currently on the mediums on lap 15, pits onto more mediums. Is it mediums? No, it is hards. I was going to say, what was that? No, it is more. It is hards onto the car for him as TDB also pits. So, and Trench, crucially for him, rejoins still in front of TDB. And will it start to get desperate for the Renault driver? Out comes Trench, right with Cobalt. TDB gets past him as well. And no, Cobalt then lags back in front of them. So I don't know what happened there, but Cobalt is now back ahead of Trench and TDB. And Desinho in the Mercedes was involved in that too. And he's right behind TDB now in the Mercedes car. So TDB passed him earlier. He's still ahead of him after the pit stops. And Desinho's tyres 5 laps older than TDB's hard compound tyres, which will definitely play a factor towards the end. You can see Trench and TDB going to the end from here, but those whose hard tyres are a little bit older, that remains to be seen whether they can make them go the distance between now and the end. Meanwhile, Jack Prentice has been passed by Vapor Canute, so Canute's ahead, but look at that, 3 seconds now behind JT. So this traffic since the pit stops has really worked in JT's favour. He's 4 seconds behind Vapor King, but let's not forget as well, JT has 6 seconds worth of penalties. So as it stands, provided, well, when Vapor King comes into the pits, that will be enough. As Carwin, Rob and Sam have been going side by side, and Sam right behind him. And now the Haas and the Alfa Romeo are still well down towards turn 4. Sam's got the inside. Carwin Rob tries to defend the outside. This is really good stuff between these two. Can Carwin Rob hold it? Yes, he can. That turns into the inside for turn 5. Can Sam now hold it around the outside? Well, Carwin Rob gives him the space. This is fantastic racing between these two through turn 6. And Sam is ahead of Carwin Rob. Outstanding racing yet again. Through the first sector of the lap, this time it's between Sam and Carwin Rob. And it is a change of position with Rob now behind him, but for how much longer? Well, he has to just stay behind for the time being. There's Trench, still just in front of TDB. They have now cleared Cobalt, who is right in front of Desinho. So Desinho now will just be waiting for TDB and Trench to clear off up the road so that he can have a look at passing the Williams for what at the moment is the final points paying position, both Cobalt and Desinho holding penalties in this Grand Prix. Desinho running slightly wide through turn 14, which compromises the run massively through 15. So he won't get a huge exit out of turn turn 16, I should say. He will still have DRS on the Williams in front. Meanwhile, Bazooka Joe is just in front of Trench now as well. So that's going to be just a little bit more traffic to negotiate. Bazooka Joe is still on the same set of hard tyres that he started this race on. So it's been an impressive effort so far from him. He'll be trying to stretch them long enough such that he can go on to the mediums towards the end of the Grand Prix. I doubt he'll be able to use the softs towards the end because they simply just won't have the longevity, but we will see. Bazooka Joe has outraced Sam 3 times this season. Likewise, Sam on Bazooka Joe. So it's been a consistently interesting battle between those two. Bazooka Joe just has a habit of pulling something out during the Grand Prix. Vapor Trench gets a penalty for running wide, and that's about to be compounded here because TDB's very close to him, but he's not quite close enough to go for the overtake just yet. But that's pretty crucial, isn't it? The championship leader now has a penalty in the Spanish Grand Prix. Vapor Canute still up in 3rd place, which will turn to 2nd once Vapor King comes into the pits. It's still 3 seconds between JT and Vapor Canute out front. So Canute is set to close the championship gap by quite a few points, and depending where King feeds back out. That could also play a factor as Trench gets ahead here of Bazooka Joe. And what about TDB as well? He's down the inside of Joe, and he gets him without creaming Trench in front of us. That's a very good move to follow up on Trench's pass by TDB. And they're both past Bazooka Joe. That's pretty crucial for TDB. Stays within touching distance of the McLaren in front. Well, Cobalt and Desenio are both eyeing up a move now on the Alfa Romeo driver as they feed the car to 5. Only so long the Bazooka Joe will be able to keep these cars behind with 17 laps now on his hard tyres. So those tyres are getting on a little bit, and surely won't on the time before he has to come into the pits before he gets into puncture territory. As here comes Cobalt. No, hasn't quite got the braking distance to go for a little overtake on the Alfa Romeo yet. As JT with another fastest lap, 3.2 now out front between himself and Vapor Canute. Jack Prentice is in the pits now for AlphaTauri, currently on the hard tyres. So let's see. So he's one of those that started on the hards. We are now about to find out what tyres he's got. So it is medium tyres, so he's not going to risk it for a chocolate biscuit on the softs towards it. I don't blame him either, because 15 laps on those tyres here at this circuit would be an absolute killer, really, for his race. Bazooka Joe also pits, so mediums on for him as well. He'll be glad to be rid of those hard compound tyres. He was losing positions, well, left, right and centre, really. And Sam in the Alfa Romeo has just spun. Sam spins round. Once on the podium, definitely not there anymore. He's also now outside the points, having just spun the car round. He's in a very awkward place at turn 3, facing the wrong way. Through goes Bazooka Joe. That's a free position for him, having just come into the pits. And Sam with a mistake at turn 3. We're seeing a lot of mistakes through the first 3 corners this evening. And it is once again an error of judgment. This time for Sam. Oh, he spins again. He spun at turn 4. He's in the gravel this time. Just when you thought that couldn't get any worse at all for Sam. He's in the gravel this time in the Alfa Romeo. There he is, just rejoining. Oh, it's a horror show for the Alfa Romeo driver. Meanwhile, Vapor King comes into the pits for Haas. Mediums on for him. And away he goes back out into the pit lane. So it does mean that JT has the lead back. And meanwhile, Vapor Trench and TDB going side by side. TDB gets him. TDB's ahead into 4th place in the Spanish Grand Prix. TDB's championship hopes were hanging on a string coming into this evening's action, but he has just given himself another glimmer of hope as he gets past the McLaren and up now into 4th place in the Spanish Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Vapor Canute has just managed to coax that gap down to less than 3 seconds. So as it stands, Canute will win this race with the 6 seconds worth of penalties that JT has. And you just wonder if Canute will be subtly aware of JT's struggles with penalties this evening. And if he is aware, he'll know that he doesn't need to push extraordinarily hard, just needs to keep within distance of him and avoid picking up any penalties himself between now and the end. As Sam comes into the pits for Alfa Romeo in a race that has just gone horribly wrong for him, and he is out of the Grand Prix for Alfa Romeo. So a shame for him, having been running so well once upon a time in this Grand Prix. Cobalt, meanwhile, is chasing after Bazooka Joe as they enter the final sector. And now in towards these final few corners of the lap. Carwin Robb for Haas comes into the pits. So he's just had his teammate Vapor King come in. And Carwin Robb now exits as well. He will be just in front of Bazooka Joe. And, yeah, so out of the pits he comes. And still P10 for him. Cobalt now is past Bazooka Joe. There he is into turn 1. That move was coming because Cobalt generally has had the pace advantage over in the season. They are actually on fairly similar age tyres as Vapor King and Desenio go side by side. And Vapor King, having just come into the pits, gets past the Mercedes. And back up to P5 now for King. And I'll tell you what, he's only got 3 seconds to make up here to Vapor Trench. And he is going to the... Oh, as Desenio has a look into turn 10. But couldn't quite get it done. He's got 3 seconds to make up to Trench, and he is going to the end on this set of mediums, and he's on fresher and softer rubber than Vapor Trench. So you would imagine here that Vapor King will actually have a really good chance of and potentially putting himself within a shout of a podium, because once he gets to Trench, and he surely will, there's less than a second to go to catch up to TDB after that. So well, this will be very intriguing indeed to see if what King can do here. And if he can catch up to the podium, places Kasu with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix in the Red Bull. Now what that does do is it just puts that fastest lap further out of reach of this man, Vapor Canute, which does play into the hands of Vapor Trench. But at the moment, Vapor Canute set for 18 points. And actually, because of the penalties for JT, he's actually set for the full 25 in this Grand Prix. With Vapor Trench himself, you would imagine, set for less than 12 because he has penalties to his name. So in theory, he would be plunged down to P5, which would mean a 15-point gap between them and just an 11-point gap in the championship going into the final 2 races. So I wasn't joking when I said that this championship has been split right open, and it has been cracked on its head here, as Jack Prentice has a penalty now for Alpha Tauri. Where's he? He's P9 at the moment in that car. So currently 9th place for him. Carwin Rob with the fastest lap right behind him in the Haas. So fastest lap now is plummeting. Desinio, though, is still very close, isn't he, to Vapor King? He's not given up on this position yet, and that's pretty impressive, given that he is on the hard compound of tyre. What does it, of course, is that he's got DRS to try and stay with the Haas driver in front. Elian, meanwhile, is just in front of Vapor Shea. These are some needed points here for Elian in the context of the relegation battle. He's going to outscore Buttons Back and Lord Alam and Fashion as well, who isn't racing this evening. So Elian here would be set for 6 points, which would take him on to 10 points, and that would take him out of the relegation zone. In fact, no, it wouldn't. No, it would put him, I'll tell you what, it would put him within a point of safety, which is crazy because Brown's outside the points as well. So it would put him nearly out of the relegation zone, but not quite out of the relegation zone. But it certainly would be much needed points for him. And consider as well that Desinio in front will have penalties added on at the end of the Grand Prix, so it could end up being more points. And those extra points would then take him out of the relegation zone, and it would put Brown into the relegation zone. So it's all very intriguing here in the FPSL. It's not just the fight for the championship itself that we're looking at. We're looking at the bottom, well, not really the bottom 3. It's more the bottom 7 as to who is going to be relegated come the end of the season, as Sam having already. Kasu just recently set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, now right behind Bazooka Joe as they approach turn 5, but he's not going to be close enough yet to go for the overtake on the Alfa Romeo, but surely he's going to get it done soon because he looks a lot quicker than the Alfa Romeo driver. Through turn 9 they go, slightly wide, but does want to keep hold of the car, and now down towards turn 10 isn't quite close enough to go for the overtake just yet, but surely down towards turn 1 there's going to be ample opportunity for him to pass the Alfa Romeo. Canute has just got that gap back down to 3 seconds, just on out to JT, but he has penalties himself, so he's got a 3-second time penalty as well as Canute. That's why he's pushing to try and close that gap, so that changes things again. So here now Vapor Canute is set to lose out on the win because he's got a 3-second time penalty, and he's just over 3 seconds behind JT. So JT once again is in the driving seat, pardon the pun, to take the victory. So it's once again, it's nearly a level playing field, but not quite. Still has that in Canute. Kasu has got it to P12 ahead of Bazooka Joe. And next up for him, if he can catch Cobalt, is the Williams driver. Cobalt outside the points and looking here for what would only be his what would it be? It'd be his 4th points finish of the season, and considering how well he's performed generally, that would be a surprise for him. His misfortune really started in Italy when he retired from the race after just 3 corners. And sadly for him, nothing's really gone his way yet this season. No podiums to his name. Neither so for Reese, but Reese has picked up a pole position this season. That was in the first race in Italy, and of course we know what happened there with Desinio. So Vapor pits, so he hasn't been able to make those hard tyres go the distance. He will now pit onto a set of soft tyres. And with a driver of Vapor calibre, you would fully expect him here to be able to challenge for the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. He comes out in P13 and just behind Bazooka Joe, so he's got some traffic to clear, and we'll see if Vapor can set the fastest lap, and we'll see if he can make his way back up into the points paying positions between now and the end of the Spanish Grand Prix. Desinio now is just about a second behind Vapor King, so King is just beginning to eke out the lap time to escape from Desinio, and whereas he's now under 2 seconds behind Vapor Trench, so this will be a tight one, won't it, in the final few laps of the Grand Prix. Remember as well, Trench does have penalties to his name, so those will be added on at the end of the Grand Prix, which could give King that position. And Vapor Trench himself is still under a second behind TDB, so it's so close between those two out front. And it's tantalising out front as well, because it is still just over 3 seconds. So JT right now is hanging on to the win by just over 1/10 of a second from Vapor Canute. It is such a tight affair out front. And such a tight affair as well in terms of the championship. And, well, really, Trench right now, I'll be hoping and praying that JT can just keep that gap to where it is and win the Grand Prix and take some valuable points away from Vapor Canute. Shea right behind Bazooka Joe. Through turn 3 they go. He's got so much more grip, but he picks up a penalty running wide through turn 3. Has a look into turn 4, but isn't quite close enough yet. I'll tell you what here. Oh, he's got a good exit. And he's round the outside through turn 5. Can he pull it off? He's got such superior grip, he just might. But Bazooka Joe is still there. Shea's got the drive, and he's got the position. And up now to P12 goes the Racing Point driver. And 3.5 seconds to make up now to catch up to Casu. But he does have penalties, does Shea. The chances of both any Racing Point car scoring any points in this Grand Prix are beginning to dwindle, you would say, with James down in P14 himself. Vapor Trench still very close here to TDB. It's so tight between these two. The more these two battle, the more that man behind them, Vapor King, just begins to get that bit closer as Trench has a look into turn 4. I think Trench is more than aware of King's presence behind him, which is why he's pushing so hard now to try and get past the Renault. Vapor Shea has just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix in the Racing Points, so at the minute that accolade is going to him, but he will not get a point for it because he's not within the top 10. You only get the fastest lap point if you score points in the Grand Prix. Meanwhile, there's a battle for the final points. It's between Cobalt and Casu. Cobalt has a penalty though, Casu does not, so as it stands right now, Casu would be taking that point anyway, but he's looking here to make sure of it by getting past the Williams on track. Vapor King now just 3/10 behind the McLaren of Vapor Trench, so King here is closing in the podium places. If he can nail a pass on Vapor Trench down towards turn 1, surely there's going to be very little stopping him from getting the podium place off TDB in the closing stages here in Spain. But Trench got quite a good run, didn't he, through the final corner, so King isn't quite going to be close enough yet to go for the pass in towards turn 1. And as we head in towards the latter part of this Spanish Grand Prix, there's drama absolutely everywhere. But Vapor Canute here has just got within 3 seconds of JT. It's 2.5 now between those two as Casu gets past Cobalt and he's got him into turn 1. So Casu now P10, Cobalt pushed back outside the points. But this here, this is potentially Knut's first win in the FPSL. Just a few laps to go here in the Spanish Grand Prix. And Knut is so close, surely, to the victory if he can stay within 3 seconds. And meanwhile, here's Vapor King, pushes Trench off the track. He's up to P4. Vapor King passes Vapor Trench. It's 4th place for him. And next up is TDB as the battle for the podium rages on here in Spain. Well, Carwin Rob is ahead of Jack Prentice, I should say. So that's a battle for 8th place. Jack Prentice loses 8th. Carwin Rob gains it. Both of these two have penalties. And Carwin Rob now getting himself up into 8th position in the Spanish Grand Prix. Vapor Knut 2.8. Oh, it's so tight. Just a few laps to go. Is JT going to have the win? Or will the penalties allow Knut to finally take his first win of the season here in Barcelona, Catalonia? There have been 7 wins from second here in Spain in the past. That's Vapor Trench. Oh, and Vapor King is... Where's Vapor King? Oh, he spun! Vapor King, who was in for a massive shout for a podium place, has spun the Haas round whilst challenging for the podium. And he's now down in P7. His contestment for the podium place is out the window. And now look at Carwin Rob, his teammate. Rob, who has outraced the teammate once this season. And he's surely about to make it twice. They're side by side. King defends it. Little bit of contact between the two Haas drivers. Don't spin again. Oh, they're still side by side. This is wonderful stuff between the two Haas cars. And King stays in front. Rob goes to the outside. Now he's going to cut back underneath him on the exit of turn 4. This is so tight. King stays in front into turn 5. Exceptional stuff between the two Haas cars. And King staying in front, but that mistake from Vapor King, he's cost himself any chance at a podium. He'll be kicking himself long after this race is over for sure. And all of this means that Elian is up to P6 and now on for 8 points in the Spanish Grand Prix. Still has the Senio in front, who still has penalties. But he is 3.9 seconds behind. So it remains to be seen whether that's going to be enough for him to actually claim that position. But 8 points would still take him above Brown, pushing Brown into the drop zone in Division 1. Right, Vapor Knut is 2 seconds behind JT. So with 1 lap to go after this one, Vapor Knut, provided he doesn't pick up any penalties, is surely going to do it here. And meanwhile, here they go again. Vapor King still just in front of Carwin Rob. Carwin Rob is all over the back of his teammate, looking to pass him for 7th place here in Spain. Such a brilliant battle between these two, and they're side by side now going in towards turn 5, but Vapor King defends the inside. Cobalt sets the fastest lap, but he's down in P13. There'll be no points for him in the Spanish Grand Prix. Now less than 2 seconds between Knut and JT, as Vapor King gets a penalty now. So Vapor King's going to finish behind Rob, or is he? Oh, no, he's not, because Rob has penalties as well. Jack Prentice behind them also has penalties. So this could be a 3-way fight here, just for track position for 7th place. 2.4 now the gap. Oh, this is tantalising. JT's on the final lap of the Grand Prix, but come the end of it, will he still be P1 on the timing screens, or will Vapor Knut steal that position off him? This is going to be unbelievably close between these two towards the end. It's now 2.6. Oh, Vapor Knut's got to get a move on. This is so tense. He's got to get a move on, but he needs to make sure he doesn't pick up any more penalties. Otherwise, that will be it. He will be behind JT. This is unbelievable. There's 0.3 of a second in it as they enter the final sector here in Spain. Can JT do enough? Has he got enough left in the tank? Has he got enough performance left in the Red Bull to win this Grand? And JT round the final corner. 2.6 is the gap. JT wins the Spanish Grand Prix, but Vapor Canute behind him wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Penalties mean that JT finishes second. Vapor Canute into P1 takes the victory in Spain. Absolutely brilliant stuff as TDB takes third, Trench in fourth, but Desinho behind him. Still waiting for him to finish the race. No, he does finish P5. What about Elian? He gets P5 because of Desinho's penalties. That pushes Desinho behind Vapor King, who is 6th in the Grand Prix. Jack Prentice ends up taking 8th place. Carwin Robin 9th. Casu will take 10th. Vapor Shea's got penalties, so he'll finish outside the points, which means Casu just about does hold on for only his third points finish of season 6, but Canute lost the win in Monaco due to mistakes. Agonisingly lost the win in Melbourne due to a last lap puncture, but now, having finished second on track, he takes advantage of JT's penalties, and finally, Canute is a winner in season 6. Vapor Canute then wins. Finally, the reigning champion takes his first win of the season. JT in second place for Red Bull. TDB in third for Renault. Vapor Trench takes P4 for McLaren. With Elian in fifth, it's Vapor King taking P6 for Haas. Desinho in seventh. Jack Prentice 8th. Carwin Rob 9th. Cassie with the final point at 10th. Neither racing points in the points with Vapor Shea in P11. Bazooka Joe 12th. TRT James in 13th. Koval 14th. Brown in P15, Lorna Lamb 16th, no points for him again in the McLaren. Buttons back, P17, still no points for him, just 2 points finishes this season. Still in the relegation zone as well. Sam down in last with the DNF as well in the Alfa Romeo. Well, what a race. It's been 2 dramatic finishes in a row in Melbourne and Spain. The gap in the championship now with Canute's win here in Spain is down to just 13 points. What a season we've got. What a finale we've got in the last 2 in Austria and Bahrain. Until next week, see you later.